Okay, so we have a slab rolled out, and I'm going to show you how we can cut this apart to create a weaving pattern, okay? So as you can see here, we have some texture left over from the slab roller. So the very first thing that we are going to do is, in your clay tools, take the smooth rib tool and just lightly compress the clay to smooth those out. And I'm not putting very much pressure. I shouldn't be, oops, don't do that, but I shouldn't be scraping down so much that it's making lines, okay? We just are lightly going across the surface. So you will want to go ahead and do that to both sides. All right, so then from here, this is where we're going to start building our slab pieces, okay? So you can, or our strips for the weaving. So you can do this in a variety of ways. You can choose to turn it this way if you want to, depending on what you're doing. But what I would recommend doing is, I'm gonna switch mine. So it's the long way. Okay, so I'm gonna take my ruler, and I'm actually going to use the centimeter side here to kind of measure this out a little bit, just to make sure that I have these pieces pretty even. I want them to be small, so I'm just going to make a little dash at the centimeter mark. And I'm going to do that down here a little bit too, to kind of help me keep them lined up. Okay, so then from here, I'm going to use my ruler to cut these in to strips. I'm just going to kind of line up my tally marks and cut along the edge. And some of these are probably going to be longer than others just because of the slab, which is totally fine. All right, so cut all your strips out first. Okay, so I'm just going to start with a few of these because I want to show you a couple of other things with the rest of this clay. So I'm just going to kind of put this over to the side. And so right now I have my strips of clay that I can start working with. Now you'll notice that when I cut those off, they are pretty jaggedy on the edges there. What you can do is just take your finger, carefully run it around along the edges to smooth out any of those cut marks, okay? So once you've done that with all of your little strips here, you can start the weaving practice. And you can do this with the paper templates that we used for the paper weaving. You can pick one of the patterns there and try that out for one of your designs, okay? The most important thing is that you're probably going to cut these and change the shape of them. So I actually don't want to work with them this long because it's going to be really, really hard for me. So I'm actually going to just kind of cut them in half. Okay, so that just gives me a little bit more versatility here. So now what you're going to do, so if you don't like the strips that are, you know, really, really rectangular, you kind of can roll them out and round them out if you want them to be more like a coil. That can totally be an option for you. That's up to you, okay? So then from here, what I'm going to do is I am going to start weaving them together for my pattern. So whatever pattern you are choosing to do, you might just choose to do a simple over-under. You're just gonna work one piece at a time, okay? So here, I'm gonna have this go over, and then it would go under here. So then I might start, as I start going, you'll just kind of fold the pieces as you go. Okay, so you're working small, but also notice that these are really close together. It's okay to have some gaps, but the gaps should not be like this far apart. If I have gaps that are this far apart, my whole clay piece is going to fall apart, okay? So I cannot have pieces that are quite like that, but experiment with it. Play with the design a little bit, just like you did with the paper ones. It's the same type of thing. So if you want like a repeating pattern, go for it, okay? You can really experiment with that, all right? But one thing that you need to make sure is that when we are attaching clay to clay, remember we have to slip and score. So these areas that I have over here, what you are going to do is you will score. Remember, that's creating the lines. And then you're gonna take your slip. If you need to refill your slip, please do so. And then you're just going to press it down together, okay? And then you'll do that for every spot that you've attached. If we don't do that, this whole thing is going to fall apart. So what you'll do is you'll just start working here with a little mini piece, and then you'll have a couple of options of what you want to do with it at the end. So I'm just gonna kind of speed up this video here so you can kind of see some of the process that I start to do, and then it might give you some ideas. So one part that I wanted to show you quick, you got to be careful with this as you move it. I'm going to just move this to the side. Is, let's say you don't want your strips to just be smooth. What you can do is you can use some different texture tools. So I have clay stamps like this that you can choose from. I have some texture roller tools that you can try out. I have a lot of little rubber stamp mats that you can use too. So you can play around with textures a little bit, and then if you wanted to, you could cut these out to make your paper strips or your clay strips to give it a little bit of a textural element too. So that's something that you can think about. You might also, when you're all done, you might go back in and add some designs on top of your completed piece here, but we will get to that when we are all done. Okay, so you kind of get the idea here. I still have a lot of smoothing out to do, but some of that smoothing out will need to occur when, and obviously I got to fill this up a lot more, but some of that smoothing out will occur when this is a little bit more dry. So one thing that's always good to do though, is to run your finger on top of it to smooth out any of those little edges and marks. Use the tools in your box to kind of help smooth out any of that. Okay, so when you are done with it for the day, you need to make sure that you have your board, and they all look a little bit different. So here's my board here that I'm going to be using. I'm carefully going to transfer it from my working space to my board, and then you need to make sure that you have a bag that this will fit inside of, and we'll spritz it with a little bit of water. Okay, please make sure that it will fit inside. You need to zip or close the bag shut. And if your bag doesn't fit, go get a different board or go get a bigger bag. Okay, so once that's zipped shut, you will tuck it under, and then you're just going to put this in your bin.